E olha só, hein? Olha quem nós temos hoje aqui no canal, o sensacional Jérôme, mano. Isso mesmo, imagina só. O cara que fez o deploy antes de existir, deploy de containers Docker antes de existir o Docker. Ó, deixa eu fechar aqui o meu retorno agora sim. Hey, Jérôme, how are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. What about you?
I'm good. Better now, for sure, man. Awesome, buddy. It is a big pleasure to us have you here. You're speaking about containers is amazing for us, man. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So, do you know you are my idol, bro? Really? I hope one day have the same facility to explain about complex things like you do with mastery. I love when you speak and I can understand everything. So thank you. You definitely you are my idol. So
Oh, thanks. Well,
sorry.
I remember a few times looking at some of your videos in Portuguese, and of course, like unfortunately, I don't really speak or understand Portuguese, but I had some of my friends from Docker kind of sit with me and look at it, and they were saying that everything was super good, and I really like the style that you have in your videos, like all this energy. It's something that I look up to and that I would like to have as well. So,
oh man, so good. And Roberto is still working at Docker or moved to another company? Do you know?
No, so I quit Docker in 2018. That's 3 years ago now.
No,
So what happened? Oh,
no.
wait a second.
I mean about Roberto. Do
Oh
you
yeah,
remember?
Roberto. Right. Sorry. Yeah, I didn't. I don't know actually. I think he might have gone to another company, but I'm not quite sure. I haven't had news from a while. You know what? I'm going to ping him after this to get some news from him.
Oh, so nice, man. So nice. So it's not every day that we have a person talk with us that deploy a Docker container before Docker exists, right? So thank you, man. So nice, so nice. Pessoal, olha só, nós vamos começar já a palestra. O que acontece? Eu preciso muito. Hoje nós temos aqui o Jérôme. O Jérôme, mano, ele fez o primeiro deploy de container Docker antes do Docker existir. Então, é um talk sensacional. E ele vai falar hoje como criar imagens otimizadas para você executar lá no seu Docker, no seu container. Então, vai ser sensacional. O que eu preciso de vocês hoje, mais do que nunca, é aquele botãozinho do curtir lá, dar aquele like para nós. E também que compartilhe esse talk nas suas redes sociais, lá no Twitter, no Telegram, compartilhe, porque é muito importante que outras pessoas vejam esse cara, vejam o Jérôme falando sobre containers. Isso daqui é uma oportunidade única, com certeza, porque você vai ver esse cara ministrando aí as suas palestras, seus eventos ao redor do mundo, e sempre você vai ver em eventos que vão ser bastante caros, não são baratos, e ele está aqui hoje para falar para a gente sobre containers, sobre como deixar as suas imagens melhor, certo? Beleza? Bora lá começar então? Everything is okay? Hey guys, do you already prepared to watch this spectacular presentation? Todo mundo está preparado aí para assistir, sim ou não, turma? Tudo tranquilo? Bora lá começar então? Ladies and gentlemen, the amazing, the sensacional Jérôme Petazzoni. With you, guy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here with you. And so I'm going to talk about Nix and NixOS and nixpkgs and Nixery. So lots of things with Nix in them. So what is all that and how can I use that with my containers? First, a quick presentation. So, meu nome é Jérôme. Infelizmente, ainda não aprendi a falar português. Sinto muito, devo fazer a apresentação em inglês. Obrigado pela compreensão. That's the only thing I can say in Portuguese, unfortunately. I think last time Jefferson invited me, I kind of joked about, okay, next time I'm going to do the presentation in Portuguese. Unfortunately, I still have not learned Portuguese. I'm so sorry. So I'm Jérôme. I'm a Petazzoni on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter if you want to hear to me talk about containers and all the random stuff I also do in my life. I worked for 7 years at Docker. Docker was a startup, and when you spend time at a startup, when you count the years, it's a little bit like when you check the age for dogs. Like one dog year is 7 years for a human. So startups, it's a little bit like the same thing. When you spend 7 years at the startup, it's like 49 years at another job, which means I would love to retire now, but unfortunately that's not possible yet. So before Docker, I did a lot of infrastructure and open source. I even co-founded a company named Nix, but that has no connection with Nix that I'm going to talk about tonight. It's just a pure coincidence. And then after Docker, I decided to take some time off. I did some kind of side projects with music, but that's not what I'm going to talk about tonight. And now I do container and Kubernetes training, a little bit of consulting, mostly training. And as you can imagine, in-person training right now is not an option. So I'm kind of moving to online training. So I will tell more about that in a moment. Okay, so the plan for today. So I'm going to explain like what are Nix, NixOS, nixpkgs, like Nixery, like what's all that stuff. Then I'm going to do a little demo of Nix using the Nix Docker image so you can see exactly what it's like. Then I'm going to build images with Nix, but kind of the wrong way. And then I'm going to talk about Nixery because that's a super cool hack, and then Vi after that. Oh, and also we should also stay at home, right? I mean, you like when you see that stuff, obviously that's a green screen, right? I'm not outside on a container port. That's just special effects. So that's the safe way to stay at home. Okay, so first, why this talk? Like, why do we want to talk about this? Well, step one, my friend Ellen a while ago tweeted this, where basically like this problem when you compile a Go binary and you try to run that Go binary in a minimal image, and it doesn't work with this super weird error like binary not found. And this is a problem that if you try to optimize your Docker images to get like really small images, you will run into that at some point because you remove files from your containers until at some point you remove something important and it doesn't work anymore. And that tweet for me was the kind of the trigger, because when I do training, I always spend a lot of time to talk about this, and sometimes I wonder, am I wasting people time, like telling them about static linking and dynamic linking and all that stuff, or is that useful? And when I saw that tweet, I was like, okay, it's useful to talk about this. So I decided to write a blog post, and then since that was a very long blog post, there was a part 2 and then a part 3. And then since so many people told me, hey, man, that blog post is really great, but you're French, so why don't you write that blog post in French? Well, then we translated it. Like I have friends actually volunteered to translate that blog post to French. So I'm French, but I write in English, and my friends translate to French. Like, what's going on? So that's 3 parts in English, 3 parts in French, and it's a lot of things about reducing the size of Docker images. And then when I published parts like 1 and 2, I think, that guy told me on Twitter, yeah, like all that stuff that you're doing is just because you're using the wrong tools. If you were using the right tools, you wouldn't have all these problems. And when somebody tells you something like that, at first you kind of want to tell them, what the fuck? But then I kind of thought again, and I was like, hey, what tools would you use, and how exactly would you do that? Do you have a blog post or something that I can check, and so that I can understand how you do it? And that pointed me to the direction of Nix, and it's how that I kind of rediscovered Nix. And I decided to see what we could do with it. And I found some kind of unexpected treasures in Nix. So first, what exactly is Nix? So Nix is a functional package manager. So that means that it's a package manager, you know, just like apt or dpkg, yum, etc. But it is functional. So I'm going to explain just after what that means. But Nix is also a custom ad hoc language. It's a specific language used by the Nix package manager. So it's both the package manager and the custom language for the package manager. In Nix, we have a notion of a derivation. A derivation is it's a recipe to build a package, basically, but it's also the name for that package. So the you know, like if we're using Debian packages, you have a Debian/rules in the source indicating how to build the package, etc., etc. So in Nix, like these things are derivations. It's the formula, if you will, to build the package. Then we have something called nixpkgs or nixpkgs. It's the collection of packages for Nix. And you have NixOS, which is a Linux distribution that you can install on your computer and your servers if you want to use that. And then there is Nixery, which is a super cool hack that I will explain a little bit later. All right, so I said earlier it's a functional package manager. So what does that mean exactly? So in a normal package manager, we have a bunch of scripts and tools to build the package, and then we install the package and we kind of expect something to happen, but it's kind of it might be there's some little changes that make different things happen. Maybe you don't have exactly the same, like if I build the package and you build the package, maybe it's the same package input, but maybe the output will be a little bit different because maybe we don't have exactly the same compiler, the same libraries, etc. With a functional package manager, we basically make sure that the inputs and the outputs are going to be deterministic. So if I take the same inputs, the same source code, the same libraries, the same compiler, the same everything, and I use the same recipe, I'm guaranteed to have the same output. And there is some hashing mechanism applied on that to make sure that we have the same libraries and so on and so on. This is the theory. You're going to see the practice like in a moment. It's going to be more concrete. So little demo. So for this demo, I'm going, of course, to use Docker. So I'm going to do docker run -ti nixos/nix. So this is downloading the Nix image. And this is going to give me a really small container using NixOS with the Nix package manager. So, I have like the normal stuff, all right, but I also have Nix and I can do a bunch of things. So for instance, how do I install something with Nix? I do nix-env-i Redis. And that means basically install Redis in my environment. So I do that, and it's going to figure out like, okay, what do we need to install that Redis thing? So it's going to, there we go. You see that it's downloading two things. It's downloading glibc, the C system library, and it's downloading Redis itself. So what really happened is that it figured out that Redis has a dependency of glibc, but it doesn't have just, a dependency on glibc 227. It has a dependency on glibc 227 with that specific hash. So you might have dozens and dozens of glibc 227, but compile with different options, different, etc. With Nix, when you have a dependency, it's like the dependency on that exact version, this exact binary, like the very same thing. By the way, all the commands that I'm going to show you are in the slides, and there is, I think, Jefferson shared the link to the slides, and I have the link to the slides at the end as well. So if you want to see all these commands, they are all easily in the slides. Okay, so after doing this, like, okay, let's look at what we have in the Nix environment. So I'm going to do nix-env-q, like query. And this is showing me, this is what you have right now. You have Nix itself, you have NSSCA cert, which I believe it's the TLS with certificates, and then we have Redis. All right. I can also ask to Nix, okay, show me all the packages, the derivations that you know about. So that's the equivalent of doing a search on the whole thing. Right, and I'm just realizing that the commands that I type are being clipped by my name in the bottom of the screen. Sorry about that. I'm going to be careful about it from now on. So this is the list of all the packages that Nix knows about, and there are tons and tons of packages. I think we have I think it's something like maybe 20,000 or something like that. As a comparison, just to give you an idea, I think distros like Ubuntu, Debian, 23,000 packages. Ubuntu, Debian, Fedora, these distros typically have like 50,000 packages. Alpine has like 10,000. So that gives us some ideas. And I can also like search specific packages with regular expressions, like, okay, show me all the packages you have with GCC in the name. Okay, so that's like really, the basic things to do some stuff with Nix. And that's the list of commands I was using. All right, so now I'm going to have a look at exactly like what was installed. Can I even like start, like the Redis that I just installed? Like if I do Redis server, okay, so it's starting a Redis server. Great. Now, let's have a look at that Redis server program. So I'm going to do which Redis server. And okay, so I see that, that usually it would be in a USR bin or USR local bin or something like that. Here it's in root Nix profile bin Redis server. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this profile concept later. But for now, let's use file. Okay, it's not found, so I need to install it. Nix-n-i file, I think. I wonder how many people like know about File, the little utility. I really love it. File is kind of guessing the type of a file. A little bit like what we do when you see the extension. If it's .mp3, okay, that's sound. .mp4, that's maybe video. .tgz, it's an archive. But file does something way more advanced than that. It's going to look at the content of the file, and it's going to try and guess, well, not only guess, but figure out, from headers, etc., what is the type of that thing. So for instance, here, it's telling me it's a symlink. Okay, fine. So now let's follow that symlink. And if I follow that symlink, I see that this is a this is an executable, all right, and it's a dynamic executable. And I see here that it is using a specific linker. So the trick here, and that's if you're familiar with linkers and dynamic linking, etc. This little thing here, that's kind of the secret sauce behind Nix. It's that a Nix program will use a specific set of libraries instead of using the libraries, in /usr/lib and /lib64, etc. It's going to use its own set of libraries. So, for instance, I'm going to try and analyze that in detail. Go copy paste that. Right. I need to copy paste that a little bit more convincingly. There we go. And I think if I want to look at the list of dependencies here, I have to use -- list. There we go. So this shows the libraries used by that specific Redis server. And instead of seeing like, again, /user/lib, etc., I can see stuff from the Nix Store. So if you want to make a parallel with something that you might be like more familiar with, it's like when you have a program and you put something in the beginning like this. You know, sometimes you say, okay, this is a Python script, so I have this first line in the beginning, and sometimes you can put something like Python 2.7 if you want that specific version of Python, or Python 3, etc. You could even put the specific path to a specific Python interpreter so that your script runs with that specific version of Python. Well, that's the same idea with Nix here. It's so that the Redis server runs with a very specific set of libraries. All right, so now that means that if we want, we can install multiple programs using glibc, but using different versions of glibc. So, for instance, I could have Redis using that glibc, and I could install bash using, you know, the same version of glibc, but slightly different files because they've been compiled differently, and all these things will cohabitate nicely. Now, if I want to have a look, you know, at kind of the little implementation details. Let's see, I'm going to restart that container that I just had here. And I'm going to have a look at /nix/store. That's where everything is stored. And you can see it's a bunch of files and directories. And that's everything that Nix is installing. And the key with that, and this is going to be important later, is that you never have a conflict because maybe that program needs like these libraries and that program needs other libraries, and they never share anything. It's not like on a normal system where you say, I'm using libc version 27, and then there is that other program using version 25, and then you can get a conflict. By the way, this is a little bit similar to what you have with Node.js and NPM, where in your project you have this node modules directory, and it's the modules for your project. And each module in your modules can have its own node module subdirectory, and so on and so on and so on. All right, so that gives us an idea, like, okay, how can we build images with that? And I wrote this little Docker file. So what is this doing? So we are installing Redis. Whoops, sorry, but a little bit too fast. Like, so I'm installing Redis, and then I'm using Nix Store -qr. That means, okay, I want you to find out all the dependencies, all the files that are needed to run Redis. So I'm like, okay, find out all these files, and this is going to list directories of /nix/store. Then I take all these files and directories and I kind of put them in that location here, /output/store. And then I use from scratch, so start with a completely empty container, and I copy these files to the scratch container. So I'm kind of asking Nix, hey, what's the very minimal, like the smallest thing that you need to run Redis? Nix is telling me you need this file, this file, this file. Then I take these files, put them in the container. So let's see. I think I have a build with this. Let's see. I have to log to my other machine here, I guess, and I'm trying to remember what I've done with this. Yes, awesome, it's here. So I have I think I might have the Docker file somewhere. Yes, that's this thing. Okay, so I'm going to build this like Redis Nix. So this is going to take a minute. And while it's doing that, since we have a minute, yeah, I'm having a look at the live chat, but right, so why am I using Scratch? Scratch is an empty image, like it has nothing in it. So often when you try to get the smallest image, like as small as you can, you do from scratch. The problem is, since it has nothing in it, generally it doesn't work. If you want to make it work, you have to use some tricks to re-add some things, use, for instance, static binaries. So it's pretty rare to actually use Scratch. So here I was like, this would be a generic way to put anything in a Scratch image. Right, so this gives me the Redis Nix image, and then I can do this to say run Redis server. Yep, that works. Let's look how big is that image. And it's 35 megs, which is pretty small. I mean, I'm sure if I take the Redis image based on Alpine, it might be even smaller than that. But the difference is that now here I have a very generic way to put anything in a container. You know, I just did install Redis with that line here, and then it figured it out. If I want like a memcached or maybe MySQL or whatever, any package, I can just put these packages here, and Nix is going to give me a really small image without all the extra crap that I would typically have in my images. And since everything is in Nix Store, that means that I could even add that on top of an existing image. Like maybe I have I'm going to give you like a so example. Let's say I have my Python application, and for some reason I'm like, I want to put Redis in that container. It's probably a bad idea, but let's do it anyway. This gives me a way to add Redis to my container without having conflicts with the stuff that I already have in my container. So that's pretty cool. So I was super happy about this, but then I saw this other person who's also like a very big Nix expert, and who told me, nope, that's not a good idea. You shouldn't need to do that. You can use Nix directly to build images. It's even better. And by the way, you can check like that thing, Nixery. I have to say, it took me a while to actually watch that talk, and it's too bad, because I spent like a lot of time, like trying to make things work, and eventually I watched the talk and I was like, mind blown. Right, let's see what we can do. I looked at some blog posts, and that there was some instructions about using build the Docker tools that build image. I tried that and it worked. It worked on my machine, but unfortunately it didn't work when I tried it on EC2 on Amazon, because that thing is using a special trick at some point. It's using KVM, like the Linux hypervisor, to do the build. So it means that it can't work when you run that on a VM, and it can't work if you run that in a container, except if we put like nested virtualization. But let's keep things simple. So I came back to Twitter and say, hey man, I'm sorry, but that didn't quite work here because blah, 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 KVM. And he told me, no, if you're using build layered image or Nixery, then you won't have that problem. So I was starting to be really curious about that Nixery thing, and that's when I watched that talk about Nixery. So here is the idea behind Nixery, and that's where we get really close to magic. So a Docker image, it's a bunch of layers, right? So for instance, let's see the images we have here. I don't know, like maybe I can find. I'm trying to find a custom image somewhere so that we can see what it looks like. Docker history on that image, for instance. So we can see that basically a Docker image is a bunch of layers. You know, like these are the list of all these layers. We can see that some layers are big because they contain like a bunch of files. Some layers are super small because they are just some metadata. And each layer is going to add, remove, change files in the final container image. When we do a Docker pull, we are just downloading all these layers like in that order. And then we are, imagine it's just like downloading a bunch of tarballs and extracting all these tarballs on top of each other. Right, okay. So that's what basically what a Docker image is and what Docker layers are. Now, with Nix, everything is stored in the Nix Store. That's /nix/store. And the important bit is that we never have conflicts. When I install a package with Nix, it will never change or replace the file of another package. Each package is installed in its own, like directory, its own silo. So imagine I install all the Nix packages on a machine. So I have a big giant like /nix/store, and I have all the packages installed here. No conflict, right? Then let's imagine that I transform each directory there into a Docker image layer. That will give me a way to pull them. Then I put that in a Docker registry. And then the last bit is to write some really clever code so that when I Docker pull an image, it's going to look at the name of the image, and it's going to create the image on the fly. Now, that's where the thing is really kind of magic. Like normally, to build a Docker image, I have to execute the Docker file. I have to execute a bunch of instructions, and I have to execute them in order because each line of my Docker file could depend on the previous line. So each time I change a line here, I need to rebuild everything there. Now, with that thing, with Nix, that's different because each line of my Docker file, if you wish, is completely independent from the others. So I could basically build, imagine like it's not exactly a Docker file, but let's pretend it's a Docker file that would say, get all these bits, all these files here and put them together. And now, since these things never conflict, I can install them in any order. And when one thing changes, I don't need to break the cache and rebuild the whole thing. So in practice, this means we can do something like this. I can do Docker pull nixery.dev / and then I put a bunch of packages, let's say Redis. And so this is going to connect to Nixery, and Nixery is going to be like, okay, you want Redis? So Redis needs like these and these and these files. So I'm going to put together a kind of virtual image with these files and then send that to you. You want, let's say, memcached. So you do that, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to be like, oh, memcached, it requires like this and this and this and that file, and put that together. Now, if I say I want memcached and Redis, it's going to basically get me something with both layers. And here, if I look closely you can see that the IDs of the layers here are the same. Can you see, like here for memcached plus Redis, that layer is the same as that one. Actually, that one, and also that one, and also that one are the same as these ones. Now, if I scroll back a little bit for Redis, I'm going to find common packages as well, like that one and that one. They are the same as, well, rather that one here. So that's the magic part, is that I can ask any package, any image, and Nixery is going to assemble it for me completely on the fly, no matter the package, the dependencies, etc., etc. So, for instance, a real example that I've used. So let's see. So in my broadcast setup here, I'm using a bunch of different tools, and they are in containers. And in particular, there is one container that is using gphoto to connect to a camera, and then it's using FFmpeg to transform the video feed so that I can use it. And so it's using gphoto and FFmpeg. And let's say I'm also gonna say I want a shell. There we go. So here I'm telling to Nixery, generate on the fly an image with some shell tools, and also gphoto and FFmpeg. And as you can see, it was super fast. It's as if you had all the combinations, like all the possible combinations of packages that you can have. And when I saw that, I could understand how it works, because I know Docker internals pretty well, and I knew Nix a little bit. So when I saw everything putting together, I was like, wow. But I'm sure that for maybe half of you, it feels like, what kind of magic is this? Now, I promise if you investigate this and you kind of, and you break that down, you will understand it super well as well. I would say it looks like magic, but it's not magic. It's science. So that was a little example, but I could add like anything. Like, so here, yeah, I have a FFmpeg and I have gphoto in this container. But we could put anything. Well, I don't know what kind of little package I could add. Maybe Python 2.7 or whatever. Okay, maybe the name of Python is not Python 2.7, maybe like this. As you can see, yes, there we go. And you can do that with any combination of packages. So that's pretty cool. All right, so I also tried to write real Nix packages, like real Nix derivations for my application. And that was hard. I managed to do it for a simple hello world in C, and I felt like, wow, this is super cool. Now I'm gonna try and do it for a Go application. And that was way harder, and I couldn't get something satisfactory. But the nixpkg, like the library of packages and derivations, has lots of documentation kind of explaining how to do that. So I would say for our applications, it could be difficult, yeah. But if you want to package something, just like you would package Debian or Red Hat, etc., it's not going to be much harder with Nix. It's because it's the same idea behind. Like, it's the overall idea. When you package something, you express the dependencies, you express how to build it, and then you have to find, okay, with RPM or dpkg or Alpine or Nix, how do I express the dependencies? How do I put that together? So yeah. So I don't know if I'm going to use Nix to package my stuff, because as I was saying, like it feels hard, and I already have Docker files. I know how to write Docker files, so it's way easier for me to do that. However, I am very certainly going to be using Nixery a lot when I need a custom image. When I need a custom image, with tools XYZ, bam, Docker pull nixery.dev/x/y/z, and you get that custom image on the fly. That's super convenient, not only on Docker, but also even more so on Kubernetes. Because if you are on Docker, it's super easy to take like 5 minutes, create a Docker file, build, run, boom. If you're on Kubernetes, if you want to do the same thing, you have to write a Docker file, build the image, push it to some registry, etc. So suddenly it becomes a whole adventure. But with Nixery, you can immediately get the exact image you want. Thanks a lot. That was my presentation. As I was saying, so there is like, if you scan that code, there's going to be the slides that Jefferson also shared with you. I've put my Twitter handle. And another thing I was saying in the beginning, that now I'm doing training. That's how I that's what I do for a living. As you can imagine, in-person training right now is absolutely not a good idea. Like, do not do in-person training right now. So I'm switching to online training. We've done a first training a few weeks ago, Docker and Kubernetes, like intro level. And at the end of this month, we're going to have advanced Kubernetes training. So if you're interested, you can check out like the entire details on that address here, container.training/next. It's going to send you to the Eventbrite page with all the information, the outline, etc. We don't do, like an entire day of training, because I'm sure like if you stay an entire day watching at me do this, and like after probably 4 or 5 hours, you will want to kill me. So what we do is that we do half day at a time. And at the end of each day, we have like exercises for the day after. So yeah, if you're interested, check it out. Thanks a lot. I'm going to check if we have questions, comments, feedback, etc. in the Q&A as well. There are some questions.
Sorry, my mic is muted. Hey man, oh gosh, this presentation was amazing as usual, man. Congrats, bro, congrats. And thanks. For sure, thank you for sharing your technology with us. It's so important to have you here talking about containers. It's amazing for us. Thank you, bro. Thank you.
No, I'm super happy to be able to share that with you. It's really great. Thanks for sticking around, everybody, as well. This is a challenging talk for me, because some of these concepts are really, it goes kind of deep in how Linux works. Like, yeah. I'm sure that when I showed all that LDD stuff, I'm sure that many people were like, what the hell is happening now? And I'm still, if you've seen some of my Docker talks, lots of people are like, oh man, you explain Docker super well. The truth is that I did it, honestly, hundreds of times. So in the beginning, it was probably not very good, but then over time, you see what works and what people understand. This is the first time, actually the second time I'm talking about Nix and Nixery. So
no, it was amazing.
It might still be rough, but yeah.
No, it was amazing. I think it's a good opportunity for all to check the knowledge about Linux, because it's so important. It's important to know about Docker, Kubernetes, and this stuff, but it's so important to know the base, the Linux, and some comments to help. Right. So do you have time for 2 questions, maybe?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Oh, so nice. I got two questions. First one, do you need to install, I will get the comment and put it on the screen. 1 second. Let me get this one.
I think at some point somebody asked, what do we need to install if we want to experiment with Nix? And basically, if you have Linux or macOS, you can install Nix directly, and it's going to stay separate from your normal system, because everything in Nix is in /nix/store. There will be nothing outside of that. So if you want to, you can install it on top of your existing system. And if you want to remove it, all you have to do is rmrf/nix, and boom, it's gone. And what I did here in my demos, I used a Docker container. Well, because I'm thinking about my Windows friends. The world is not just like Linux and Mac. Lots of people are using Windows as well. And so now we can do this, we can do a Docker run and get that on Windows.
Nice. Another one. When do you think this technology will be mature to use in the prod?
Super good question. So, the first time I heard about Nix was 10 years ago. I was going to a conference in France, the RMLL. I think it's like a Rencontre Mondiale du Logiciel Libre, like worldwide open source stuff. And there was a talk about Nix, and I kind of almost randomly walked in, and I saw explanations and demos that were a lot like what I showed here. So everything that I showed here, this is, I want to say, old, but in a good way. This has been around for a really long time. I could not tell you exactly, oh, that command was at that point and that command was here. But 10 years ago, Nix already looked like this. It was already there. It already had all these kind of special features, like special in the sense that it's different from what we do usually. But so from my perspective, Nix is absolutely stable and mature. Then you can have, for instance, maybe you want this specific package and it's not available yet, but I was surprised to see like lots of really recent packages, and even I'm a big fan of Debian. This has been my distro since maybe 1998 or something like that. And a couple of years ago, I started to use Arch Linux, because on Arch Linux, you have like more recent stuff. You have a super awesome community of folks who are packaging all the bleeding edge stuff and doing it well. So it's a little bit different from the Debian approach, where if you want that to be stable, it needs to be 5 years old. No. With Arch, you get something that's updated pretty frequently. And I found Nix to be in between. So it's there were a few things that were a little bit older than what I had on Arch, but many packages were actually more recent than on my other Debian machine, for instance. So for me, the challenge, if I wanted to use Nix, is more like, this is new, and I will have to relearn a lot of things. But it's the same thing with my Arch Linux machine. Like if you, I don't stream or do something like that on Twitch, because very often it would be really embarrassing. Just look at me trying to install a package and trying to remember exactly which command you have to use on Arch Linux, for instance. Like I have this file, I want to figure out in which package it is. I know how to do it with Debian because I've used Debian for 20 years, but on Arch, each time I feel like an idiot because I can't find these commands. So for Nix, for me, that would be the challenge, like relearning all these commands that make you like fast and productive.
So good. 10 years, man. So long time. So another one, maybe?
Sure.
Fernando Miranda, can I run images builded using Nix on another sandbox runtime like Gvisor?
Oh, I think so. As long as you can use a Docker image with that, I would say it should work. Actually, this gives me a really good idea. Like next thing I will try, I think I want to try with containerd. It should work. So it just like to validate, and then I would like to try with a NoCI compliant runtime, maybe using a Scopio. I'm going to just put the name here, Scopio. That's a tool to access registries and convert image formats. So now I think a super cool demo would be to use Copeo to get an image from Nixery and convert it so that something like Runcy or Rocket or whatever can start that image. But yeah, that should totally work.
So nice. Man, again, thank you so much. And always that you want returning here to share more knowledge with us. And yeah, man, for us it's always a pleasure to have you here, man. Thank you.
I'm super happy to be here. Thanks a lot for inviting me. And so remember, we have to stay at home.
So nice, man. See you the next time. And pessoal, todo mundo que colou aqui hoje, muito obrigado. Eu acho que é hora agora de agradecer, dar aquelas palmas para o nosso querido idolatrado Jérôme, porque o talk foi sensacional e mais do que isso, a humildade dele por estar aqui, trocando ideia com a gente, mano, é sensacional. Hey, man, a lot of people love your talk, man.
Thank you.
So nice, man. So nice. See you guys. Thank you, Jérôme, again, and vai.
Bye. Muito obrigado. Bye.
Bye, guys.